Hello and welcome to Finextra TV. I'm Liam Xavier and we're joined today by Andrew Bateman, the Executive Vice President Lending for Finastra, for this Predict 2026 interview. Andrew, lovely to have you here.
Yes, thank you, Liam. Great to be here.
Now, first of all, we're talking about things in the future. We're talking about predicting the next year. This year, we've seen quite a few changes in sentiment around AI. We started quite excited and recently it's been slightly more cautious. What lessons can be learned for the new year?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of work around POCs over the last year or so, and then bringing those to reality. I think that's where some of the challenges have been, and partly just the life cycle of how long it's taken for some of those POCs to become something that can be implemented or something that doesn't get implemented. I think that's been one aspect. I think the other aspect is getting knowledge throughout the organization. That's probably one of the bigger barriers that companies have faced. You'll get the super users, you'll get those that adopt quickly, and that's probably a minority, I would say 10 to 15%, and it quickly tails off. So the focus around education has to continue, in providing tools that are simple and easy for your colleagues to be able to use, whether that's interrogating data, whether that's using prompt-based natural language to go and get data externally, combine that with internal data insights. Ultimately, the bigger challenge will be how do you then get adoption of more agentic AI? How do you start to look at those processes and start to roll out agents that can streamline, drive efficiency across those processes?
And you were mentioning tools there and that some have sort of been a bit quicker when it comes to adoption. Part of that for the SMB market has been around access, whether that's financing or just better serving them when it comes to the tools. Could next year be the year where that sort of improves and things get better for SMBs?
Yeah, I think that's a top of mind for a lot of the banks is how do you improve the service that you can give to SMBs, and how do you improve the internal efficiency to be able to service them? Because with heavy processing, very manual back office, it's very difficult to get to a price point where you can provide those sorts of services. So I think what I'm hearing from our customers is a couple of things. One is simplification. You want to kind of simplify the offerings that you have. I think over time, banks have been providing a broad range of services, a broad range of kind of flavors of those same services, when really, when you think about lending or in the trade finance space, there's really only a subset of actual types of products. So that simplification, and then the banks have to look at that from a process perspective. So how do they invest in their technology to drive that automation? So that's coming through more modernized platforms. Agents in terms of agentic AI becomes very important then when you look at how you streamline that process, how you streamline the customer experience, how do you make that easy for them to go through the process, be able to find out where they are in a process in terms of acceptance or documents they need to load, and then quickly getting through a close process. So the close process for some loans can be 40, 50 days. You want to get that down to a matter of a few days if you're going to drive the volumes that you need for that set of the market in terms of SMB.
And obviously we've got those volumes. We've got, over the last year or two, it's been instant payments that has sort of rushed people to modernize. And a lot of this modernization has come from customer demands. Can we expect, or do you expect to see in the new year something as dramatic as that when it comes to customer experience?
Yeah, I think the instant payments has had a big impact on bank technology. If you think about typical legacy technology being more end of day batch, T+2 settlement, a lot of reconciliation process, that changed completely when we saw the rollout of instant payments across all different networks as well. So it wasn't there was one single standard as well. You were interfacing into multiple different rails in different countries and locations. So I think the expectation then increases. I think it impacts on corporate treasuries because from their perspective, they also have their own processes. Daily cash management is a typical morning activity. You find out what balances you have, you invest, and then you reconcile. and then the next day you do the same thing. But obviously with instant payments, you've got more flow across those accounts. So that starts to feed in, I think, into the expectations of service levels. How quickly can I go through a process? How quickly can I get a letter of credit established? How quickly can I get a bank guarantee in place? How quickly can I go through a loan process? So customer experience becomes really important. And this is where, the modernized platforms, particularly moving to cloud platforms and thin client, where you have more adaptability in how you can create workflows, how you can bring AI into those, in a more integrated way. And then ultimately, there's a shift I see happening in terms of the user interface. So you'll have a shift from the typical, screen with multiple fields, even if it's sort of workflow based in terms of the flow, to more prompt based. Why do you need to sort of go through filling out a bunch of boxes if you can actually communicate through more natural language? And we could well see those interfaces becoming at the forefront for providing a better level of customer experience.
Amazing. And if I put you on the spot ever so slightly, if a business and the C-suite come in January when they start back, what are the main tasks that should be started first if they're looking ahead to what they need to be ready for?
Yeah, so I think you can break it down into, maybe I think about it in three areas. So one is overall modernization strategy. Obviously, we talk about that every year. It's a continual process. But the speed and pace at which all systems are moving, away from monolithic core platforms, whether that's within your core banking platform, in your payments platform, or in specialist lending or trade platforms. You'll need to look at how do you take that forward to be able to provide the end customer experience. And it's always thinking about what does the customer need, and then how do I make that a reality with our systems. But without going through that modernization process, that becomes a challenge. Cloud strategy is something that's been on the mind for banks for a long time, and some have made some real strides. Recently came back from some customer meetings in Asia, and one of the banks there is over 90% of all of their applications are on the cloud, which gives a level of agility and scalability. But then again, you need platforms that are efficient, that you can run on the cloud, and take advantage of the benefits of cloud in terms of multi-region, in terms of the scalability, the elasticity that you get with cloud. And then there's AI, and how do you really bring that to life? And I think there's really a few areas there. The way that we look at it is in really sort of three key areas. One's around developer productivity, which applies to software businesses as much as it does to a bank in terms of their own internal development. So using tools to improve code creation, code testing, QA, that's absolutely key. And I think there's been a lot of adoption there, but it's really driving that down as a standard throughout the organization. There's those internal efficiencies. So customer service, particularly looking at processes that have been heavily manual, maybe across finance or HR, or even just across customer insights is another area. A lot of your customer information is held in different places. How do you bring that together? Historically, it's been a big focus on centralizing that data and data lakes and these very large projects. I think with AI, the opportunity there is to interrogate multiple sources. So I see that AI strategy as something that's going to be top of mind, because while we went through a lot of buzz and now it's cooled off, it's also continues to accelerate. It was only 9 months ago, I think we started talking about agents. Before that, it was just really, LLMs, and then it became, SLMs, and you start getting more focus and more efficiency out of a smaller model. And then it became agents, and how you actually create an agent, the technology you're going to use and the framework you're going to use, and how that agent, which really is sort of plugging into the APIs that you have, and the integration with all of your systems, and again, comes back to modernization, so modernized platform, more APIs. All of those systems also need to talk together. So you have things like MCP servers, and you're going to start seeing more of these terms come out as people think about how do they get that strategy. While I think the buzz has died off, I think there's a reality that banks have to do this. The customers are going to expect it. one caveat there is also the customers are going to want to know what the banks are doing when it comes to AI. And I've heard that as well from some of my customer meetings is, we're creating these more insights for the customer, where the customer wants to know, well, what's happening with my data? How's that being used? Is it safe? So that's another key aspect. With cloud, I think that's another thing that's top of mind. And I think as we go into next year, we're going to start seeing this concept of multi-cloud becoming higher on the agenda. It's not good enough just to have one cloud provider with a backup maybe in that same cloud provider's region. We've seen substantial outages happen over the last few weeks, with the big cloud providers. So a multi-cloud strategy, how do you run your application on one cloud but be able to fail over to a different cloud provider? And that is something we're going to start hearing a lot about, and I think that's top of mind for a lot of banks.
Really interesting, and I think that multi-cloud strategy there will be interesting to see how that develops. So look forward to the new year, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Liam. Lovely to be here.